Cool. So, I'm really, really excited by this opportunity that's kind of been granted to me and the team here at Locations Africa. It's like a dream come true to be able to just consistently talk about the one thing that we really love to do, and it's talking about, our amazing continent and the stuff that we do. We wake up here, we sleep here, we work here, we live here, and I'm so excited that we're able to now have this podcast. And so this is officially episode 1.
Hey.
Of the Locations Africa podcast, putting Africa in the spotlight, and not just talking to film practitioners of what they do and, the journey that they've taken on. It's really about the craft. So we're going to have these conversations with different people. Might have conversations about myself. I don't know. And it's really just about, having the honesty about our ability to service ourselves on location here in our continent, but also to be able to invite foreign productions in and give them a sense of understanding as to what we have, who we are, what our locations look like. We're not just savannas, guys. We're not just, we are a very cosmopolitan, high-level equipment. We're just talking about these microphones, for goodness sake. Guys, look at these. Big up to Rose, man. Look at this, these pod mics. I mean, we have the stuff. We have the ability to service ourselves and the rest of the world, really. And yes, there are challenges. I'm not going to run away from those challenges, but I think it's really important for us to start in Africa Month, May, to be able to have this conversation. I really want to thank you. And I think for me, the massive, massive thanks I must put out there is to AMAFU, guys.
Let's go.
Big up to AMAFU. Look, boy, as if people would say. Big up to AMAFU, and let me just give a little bit of a breakdown as to who AMAFU is. So, last year, September, it was, I took a trip to Cape Town to one of the content markets there, and we, I just kind of bumped into an old colleague of mine, and she's like, oh my God, this is where I am. So I'm doing, where are you? What are you doing? And she took me to the stand of AMAFU, and I'd never really engaged with you guys before. And I was like, what do you do? She's like, we do dubbing. Oh my God, a black dubbing company, yes. And immediately I just felt this massive affinity to the team to say, this is what we do, it's what we're trying to do. And it was really cool to see you guys put yourselves out there, have a stand, take the chance, take the risk, trust yourselves and say, I'm going to promote what I do. And there are not that many dubbing companies, I think globally anyway, as a thing. And definitely not on the continent that are doing the amount of work that you guys are doing. And the fact that you're all like young, black and fabulous.
100%.
Right? About doing this stuff. And so big shout out to AMAFU, who are major sponsors for this first part of the series. To them to say thank you for trusting us. Thank you for so much, guys, for believing in what we do. Here at Locations Africa, we just want to promote. That's all we want to do. We just want to promote Africa as a filming destination. And we want to continuously have conversations with people, whether it's through this, or whether it's through the conference, or whether it's through the digital space that we have, the websites, if it's our tours. We just want people to come home to our home and be part of what we do. So thank you so much, AMAFU, and everyone that, it took to get it to where we are today. So on that, the discussion we're going to have really is a cultural discussion. It's about that exchange of culture in a very unique way. And the exchange of culture is through language. And what I mean by that is, language is what binds us as Africans, and it's what separates us as Africans, right? In the most beautiful way, because we must have our own tongues and our own ways of talking. All right. And in that comes the opportunity for us to be able to extend our audiences. And the way to do that is to not necessarily just have everything, produced in English or produced in French or produced in Portuguese, like the languages of the colonies when they came, but to also to have an exchange in our own dialects, in our own languages, in our own nuances, and then through the dubbing process and through subtitling. It's really what it is. It's subtitles, all right? This is a little words that run across me when I'm talking.
Audio, yeah.
With audio, yeah. Exactly. And making sure, and I used to watch these dubbing, and you're like, when I was young, I didn't understand why the lips were not matching the words that people were saying. And I was like, and I think as you grow up, you realize, it's dubbing. Yeah. It's not just subtitling. Yeah. It is, I'm going here and then somebody, it's such a beautiful thing. But I think what we're trying to get to with this conversation is, it's not just about dubbing into, from a isiZulu or from a Swahili or from Yoruba into the European language, or vice versa. There's also opportunity for us to dub from one language, one of our own African languages, into another African language, right?
Yeah.
Which then starts to speak about inclusivity and cultural exchange within ourselves. But it also just allows for the broader diaspora to also not be lost in that as well. There's something special to be said about, and the discussions of the Swahili market.
100%.
The Swahili market is massive. I mean, a lot of people speak about it, and in that particular market, English is also a massive language. Okay, but you want to be able to touch the person who doesn't speak English very well in the East African community, right? Where Swahili is most prevalent, but you also want them to be able to experience our productions, be it in, Isbaya or Zalo or, Shailembe or, that are traditionally done in isiZulu, or that, when it's
just
even into Setswana or,
Lesotho, yeah.
Also, do you know what I'm saying? So that's what we were talking about today. So I am joined here today by an amazing professional. And I think I just like his transition from becoming a sound engineer into becoming a dubbing specialist. That's what you call yourself right now, right?
Thank you. I'll take that. Yes.
Dubbing specialist. But I think for me, it's just about, being able to take your ordinary kind of the sound engineering world and recreating another world for other people. All right, for intuitive. And I think for me, it was like taking you. I don't know what you're gonna have to explain to me why. Okay, what was it that got you hooked? All right.
Yeah.
He speaks of dubbing from Turkish to Afrikaans, which is interesting. From isiZulu to Swahili.
Yeah.
He speaks about English into Setswana, which is also a very special, but many other things, and also Hindi to English, right? And you're also doing Korean and Chinese into, and you're doing a whole bunch of things now. You're out here doing some Korean stuff. Oh, wow. Okay, so those who love productions from the East, he did it.
It was a big team, but I was part of it. First things first, thank you for having me on your podcast, and I think this is special, especially in the context of Africa.
Yeah.
And I think even with dubbing, for me, a lot of it is storytelling, but in that storytelling, there's also context. So a lot of it, as far as like localization, all I think about in that case, or when it comes to that word, is the context of our stories, and I think dubbing is special. It actually kind of became a part of my career not too long ago, but I think ever since I started, I just kind of loved it because you're telling almost the same story, but you're contextualizing it to someone else that can understand it from their own traditions and cultures and language as well. So but thank you for having me on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So when we discuss the kind of the flow of conversation I'm always going to have when we're doing any of these particular programs, I'm going to ask a very simple question, which is, what does success look like for the dubbing industry in Africa? All right. And then to kind of round that off, I would love to go back and say, what what should we do to attain that success, right? So what does the language industry look like for film, and why should we look as at producers, from a production point of view as producers? Why should we have as a line item to want to dub? Why?
Okay, first answer when it comes to that, and it's something that I've also seen the kind of the industry moving there, but maybe in an African context, not moving fast enough.
Okay.
So the first thing there is every single content that we shoot, that we produce, as far as film, series, all of that has potential to be dubbed. Because when you think about the market, when you think about selling your story, it's very important for you to actually think about where you want to sell it, and you can already dub from a production standpoint. So even the dubbing process, from my own belief, has to start much earlier than after selling, selling to like a channel or a service provider. It's very important to think about it in the production stage as far as film is concerned. So for me personally, I do feel that every content that we, as an African film industry, we have to look to try and make sure that we include dubbing in it. Because we are trying to tell our stories, but we're also trying to tell our stories in a way that other people can relate, but also they can relate from their own tongues and language and their own context as far as like tradition and cultures are concerned. So I think, that's my main answer as far as that's concerned.
Okay, so take me through the understanding and the process of it all. All right. So is it I kind of just walked into the building today, and then I just saw storyboards of Korean actors that I've seen. Okay, a lot of people watch K-dramas. Okay, is what it is. I'm like, so y'all in K-dramas now? So it was like, okay, we're doing that. Take me through that technical journey as to what that looks like. Because I literally, my assumption was, okay, so you've got a Korean guy sitting next to you and he's helping you. Your guy's like, no.
Yeah.
No, they just give us this, that, and the third. It sounds simple.
Yeah.
But what are the compliant? What does that world look like from a very, systematic point of view?
Okay, cool. Not even to go into it too technical, but the main way it kind of, I guess, starts when they start thinking about the dubbing, they think about the markets, right? Where they want to actually sell these stories and also just make them more relatable. Okay. So I think that's a big factor. But on a technical level, the deliverables from, if I produce a show, for example, or film, and we get to the end stages of everything, mixes are being finalized, being edited. Once we deliver that to the studio, they then start thinking about how more to financially actually benefit from this product that they spend so much money on, as far as like getting actors and location, again, also paying for that. So it's very... it's a smart business decision as well for the companies, because you don't have to actually reshoot a show. The show's already done. So now we can look at how do we localize it in different markets around the world. And that's where we come in as far as AMAFU is concerned. So multi-choice is an example. I don't know if we're naming service providers, but multi-choice is an example. If they have a Shaga Ilembe that they've produced, spent a lot of money on for more content, especially with streaming in mind, that's also a big factor as far as how dubbing is becoming a boom. Netflix is a big game player as far as that's concerned, because streaming, more content, more consumption, right?
Yeah.
So as far as getting everything done, Chaga Lembe done shooting, now, we're ready to stream it. That's where you have to think about where you want to stream it. Okay. So the thought of where you want to stream it then informs which languages you're going to go with. So if Chaga Lembe if we want to sell that, for instance, in Kenya or Tanzania, as an example, we want to do it in Swahili. So we then have to contact a dubbing house, which is AMAFU as an example, and we give them the content that we have as far as the show. So the show consists of the deliverables we got, which is the final mix, M&E, which is music and effects, subtitles, and visual as well. So all these factors are what we receive as AMAFU, and then we try and use all of those sources to create a dub show.
So then do you then have to bring in dubbing, you got to bring in voiceovers? Do they literally read the subtitles as is, or what happens in that process?
Cool. So as soon as we receive the subtitles, ideally we would want scripts that are time-coded, that are as, when you're watching a show, when you're listening to it, we want the script to almost say exactly what that experience is. We hardly get that as far as this industry is concerned. So we'll get the subtitles, which we can use because usually those are in English. We then have to kind of use that to localize whatever from whatever language. So if it's a Zulu show that was predominantly recorded or filmed in Zulu, we have English subtitles to at least work from to do or get to the Swahili part. So it's like it moves through different languages, but English is usually the median of the language we use to translate from. So if the English doesn't match the Zulu, that's where some of the problems start. But essentially, we then start using the subtitles to translate to whatever language we have to localize to.
Okay, so does this mean that you guys have a bank of voiceover artists? That is it what it comes down to? Is that it comes down to a particular voiceover artist, and they should be from that culture, right? So
100%.
So in the case of a Turkish film, right? Whatever production was, I don't know what production it was.
Yeah.
Obviously, then you have the Afrikaans here, which is really easy. But in the reverse, you have a GakeNet production that needs to go to Turkey.
Yeah.
Like, do you now have to literally find? So you have to then find. So you do a call out and say, can you speak Turkish, or whatever language? Because movies call something else, but Turkish languages. So you have to do a call out to go and get that voice, and then you just hope for the best. Or does that particular voice have to be in the accent of that particular region? Case in point, there's Joburg Zulu and there's
KZN Zulu. Yes. So usually those are the decisions and kind of the back and forth you'd have with a service provider, depending on what they want as far as selling it to a certain market. But when it comes to the actors, usually the best way to do it is to have a voice bank of actors that you've used before. But if it's your first project, you would then have to do a casting call. So where you hold auditions for certain characters for the show that you're dubbing to. So essentially, it depends. The first time is the hardest because that's when you do your call out for those actors, and then after there it becomes a bit easier. But if you're dubbing in different languages every time, that's the safest thing to do. It's always do a call out. So if we're dubbing something to French, as an example, we have to do a call out for French speaking dubbing artists. So we usually try to go professional first, and then we can go to, people that are trying to start out. Because it's also not, I wouldn't say it's, professional only type of job, but essentially it's like, you can learn in the job and, it's talent based, and reading efficiency is important. And when it comes to the accent, usually the urban accent of whatever language is what we go for, depending on the kind of show. We had this conversation recently, actually, with Sihle, and I was saying the city version of whatever language, but he said urban, because that's the word they use these days.
That's the word they use these days.
Yeah, I still don't agree with the urban, but essentially, you use the most popular one. But if it's Shaga, Ilembe, which is a traditional set show, you then try and get the traditional set of what the Swahili equivalent would be.
Oh, wow.
So that's part of actually what...
I get that.
Yeah, it's part... It depends on the show. If it's set in the city, I guess that's where location is also kind of part of it.
Yeah.
If it's set in the city, then you use the urban form of the language to dub to. But if it's in the traditional, in the rural areas, then you kind of use what they would use. So that's also kind of like the small nuances of the decision making, but usually it just falls with whatever the client sees. But if you can advise them, then, you know, they also will take that on board.
Wow. Okay. All right. So in terms of QC for it, what are the, like I said, you've kind of gone into it in terms of the QC of matching the particular character, the characterization of that voice. That's a QC for you, right? What are the other quality control measures that you take in trying to get the product out?
The biggest one for me is, I think you referenced it, you know, when we were growing up watching old Chinese movies and the mouth wasn't matching the audio, but you were still kind of engaged.
Monkey magic, guys. Yes, monkey magic was the one for me.
I was very engaged by, you know, old Jackie Chan and Jet Li.
Yeah.
Even though now, having grown up, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that was something.
It's not, the voice is not matching what we're looking at. So essentially, the biggest one, especially as an engineer, the biggest one is the sync, which is basically, does the voice, first of all, match the character? And secondly, which is the sync, does it match the length of the mouth movements? So, yes. So that's kind of where it's very, that's basically where we shine, I think, as AMAFU, to be able to deliver like quality work that kind of matches those QC points, because I think other industry players may not focus too much on those, but we care about the viewing engagement in the show. So making sure that when the person starts speaking and when they stop speaking,
it's matched.
Yes.
Exactly.
And on top of that, the syllables have to also kind of match. Because if I say, as an example, if voice is like, hello, how you doing? And then I can translate that to like Sawubona as Zulu. It won't match. The syllables don't match hello, how you doing? And that's really a big part of even just the previous step, which is transcribing what we have from the subtitles, because the subtitles have less words. We have to make sure that in the Zulu, as an example, we're adding more to kind of match what we're seeing on the screen.
My goodness, this is so you guys have watched a lot of TV.
Yes.
Okay, you watch a lot of.
I'm also growing up.
You've watched a lot of TV, but I think in your daily work, it really is about being in that post-production space and just watching a lot of programs and just kind of going through that. So you've got a situation where somebody has an idea for a film. At what point do you feel we should start thinking about that secondary market through dubbing? Is it? I mean, like you said, that, you know, it's very unfortunate that they only think about it at the end when they're thinking about, oh, okay, how am I going to make more money out of this baby because I've lost money in my market and blah, blah, blah. Oh, let me go to dubbing. Let me find a real product. Let me find now you're going to find all this stuff.
Exactly.
Right? When should we plan for dubbing? I think we should. Yes. First of all, I think it's a thing that we should just plan for it, whether we do it or not. Yeah. But at what stage in that entire creative process should we think about it?
Personally, for me, as early as possible.
When is that point?
That point for me would be as you're shooting. So after, story gets approved, you do your casting. As you're doing your casting, because an example I will raise is sometimes you could use the same cast to dub the same show in a different language. So if the show is predominantly in English and maybe you have a predominantly Zulu cast, in a South African context, that does happen, then you can already plan as the company producing the film, you can already plan that, we are going to need these people back at this stage to redo or redub not redub, but to dub the show. Okay. So for me, it's very important to think about dubbing as soon as you're producing the film, just as a thought. But once you get to the end stages of the producing of the film or the show, then I think it's very important, especially with deliverables, because we also have experiences where, you know, a client could say they don't have M&E for a certain show. And if they had thought about that as they were finalizing whatever show, whether it's a Uzalo or whatever the case is, then they always make sure that the deliverables are there to start the dubbing process as soon as possible. Because as soon as you go to market, you do want different people to experience the same show the same time, usually. That's the best case. If you're releasing a Shaga Ilembe, you don't want them to wait for like 12 more months, like in Kenya as an example, to be able to access that. So you want to always make sure that you're delivering to your consumers almost at the same time. And I think the most important thing is to start the dubbing process earlier.
So it's almost like doing pickups, right? So it's many productions do this. They have to do pickups at some redos at some point. Anyway, so it's almost like the same, not the same, but it's a similar kind. Okay, I'm going to book you for a little bit extra time. Let's go back into the scene and watch. I mean, at that point, it's rushes anyway. It's not like the final product. But let's go back and spend another 2 weeks. When they've kind of just got it, just about to go to final mix, let's listen to you. So then they final mix almost like at one time, 2 different languages at one time. It's a few more weeks.
That's a possibility,
Okay. It's a couple more weeks. So I think one thing that I picked up from you just now is that, yes, you must speak up, you must try and match the character, which is really cool. But what happens with the music now, right? So you've got music which is in the production, which is very localized to the production. Do you keep that music, or do you then say, actually, guys, in order for the next level, is there a next level? Where then you say, okay, fine, let's choose a different kind of sound. Is that part of the process where you would choose a different score or a different, theme, a different track to match that particular country? Do you think about that? Was it important?
First answer is yes. That's very important.
Okay.
Because I also come from a music background, and I think localizing the music is part of it. But that's a bit trickier when it comes to copyright. So essentially, I have worked on shows that we have done that. We have localized the music, particularly Turkish to Afrikaans. So in Turkish show, if you have obviously someone singing Turkish, especially when it's part of the storyline, then you can localize that, get a musician in who's going to basically replay or play something close to the original production, get the character that plays whoever's singing at the time to also sing that part. So for me, that is the next stage as far as what we can do with dubbing. That just has more red tape as far as copyright and time as well, and money. Because usually, like you said, they wait to finish the production, they release it, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Let's try and maximize the profits or whatever the case may be. Let's dub the show. At that time, they're not thinking about the quality necessarily. And I think for me, if you're not thinking about quality, if you're trying to dub the work, even us as AMAFU, if we say, hey, we'll do the music for you, you're thinking about saving a buck because you know it would cost you more. So I think the main thing is if you think about dubbing early enough, then you can have room to have those thoughts and decisions made much earlier to say, okay, cool. These are things that we need to kind of think about for the next stage as far as dubbing is concerned and the quality of it, in my personal opinion.
Is it in your view a career that a young person can literally say, you know what, Mum, I want to be a dubbing engineer? Is it something that they can actually
100%. Yeah, 100%, because it's a market that's growing rapidly because of recent successes from like, you know, your bigger shows like Squid Games and Money Heist.
Yeah.
So those shows kind of created a precedent as far as like you can have a show that's a good dub that becomes a big show like in the world as far as we know it, but it's growing rapidly.
Yeah.
Even though, yeah, actually I would say, because one of the things parents are always worried about is like, are you going to get a job in this industry? And I think for me with dubbing, as someone that has tried to employ people within this industry and found it very hard to find people that have experience with dubbing, yes, there are jobs for dubbing engineers. Even for dubbing actors, you know, post production engineers for final mixing, dubbing work specifically, because obviously there are post production engineers. There's quite a lot of them, but dubbing specifically or mixing specifically dubbing, the market is, you know, it's ready. Huge. Yeah.
The market is, I mean, I literally, I'm now the streamers. I mean, I would watch a program like, but something's odd here.
Yeah.
And I think the technology has moved so far that you're explaining to me even the tempo of someone's, you know, I'm like, but hold on, there's something's wrong here. I know this thing is not in English, but it looks like her lips are moving exactly the same time as English. And I was like, oh. And then I go back a bit, or you kind of forward on, and you're kind of trying to go back to the explanation. I said, oh, it's a Swedish production.
Yeah.
Okay, now I get it. Okay, I was a bit confused.
Something was,
you know, but I think it's because I'm in the industry, so my ears and my eyes are very like, they spark up when I can see something. And that's why being a location manager, sometimes I can't, and VFX person, like, I cannot watch some films because it's like, it's blatantly obvious that the key went wrong here. But let's speak about the culturalization of it and what happens on the continent. In your knowledge, how many African dubbing companies are there across our continent or that focus on African languages?
As far as the focus on African languages, I can speak mostly for South Africa. We do have quite, I wouldn't say a lot, but we have at least one major dubbing company per, you know, let's say 3 provinces, you know, like you have, it's like you have your big players and then you have your startups, but it's usually harder for startups to kind of start being, you know, established in this industry because of the demands of it. But as far as Africa is concerned, I don't have too much knowledge on how many there are, but I do know that, you know, when you look at the difference in tradition, like the things that divide us, which is our traditions and language and so forth, there's a huge appetite to dub across the continent. And I think that's the most important thing is that, you know, as far as Africa, we always feel like we're untapped, you know, like in any industry really. But I think with dubbing and the different languages, there's a huge appetite to do that,
And I mean, your customer base is growing at a pace that it's growing, whether it's exponential, whether it's slow, that doesn't really matter. But the fact is that it's growing. And I think for me, the fact that you guys actually are working with international productions, so it's huge for a company that is growing. It means that the trust base is also expanding. As a global company, is there a space where the sound engineers kind of gather and talk about it and discuss it? Because, and the reason I'm asking this is we have film festivals, we have film markets, you have photographic markets, you have, you know, all these kind of markets where we can go and explore, learn, showcase. Is there that space for you guys in the world?
The short answer is no.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the short answer is no. And I think it goes back to the demand. There's a high demand as far as like the engineering, the dubbing engineering, you know, like it's also unfortunate that then you have a few specialists and then it's like the different companies then try to keep the same professionals and the same specialists. And if I leave my job here, as an example, like another competitor, as an example, will try and snatch me. But now it's like they need another replacement. So for me, no, there isn't. And even on a school level, because I remember when I was studying, I did not know about dubbing. And even curriculum-based, like it was never communicated to me that, oh, this is an industry that's about to boom, and I think maybe there's not much research that was done into it. But I also did go to school a long time ago. Maybe that's the case. But yeah, so I think for me, there's a lack of knowledge as far as this particular industry when it comes to engineering. And you realize that a lot of engineers that we get to collaborate and work with is the first time that they're engaging with dubbing work. And we've tried our best, especially in the last 12 months or so, to get a lot more engineers and work with different engineers to get them introduced to the space, so that now when we go back to them to collaborate, there's an experience element to it. But yeah, there's a lack of research and a lack of getting together and trying to build the industry as far as the engineering part of it is concerned.
So then, to answer my question, and I need you to help me answer this, what does success look like for this industry in African context?
Success for me looks like every single show that we get to produce and release gets dubbed into our local languages. Like, as an example, South Africa is a melting pot. An example would be like if you're releasing Shaga Ilembe, you could release it to start with like 5 extra languages, South African languages, to South African people, especially with those stories, because there is an element of understanding already. Like when we were recording a Zulu show to Swahili, one of the things I realized, like a lot of the Swahili dubbing artists almost could try and understand the story from their Swahili traditions and language. So I think for me, it's important for us to actually to focus on those things where we're thinking about dubbing much sooner. So success in this industry for me is consider dubbing immediately, as you consider the show or the film, so that even the quality of the dubbing work becomes a bit better because you've thought about it, you've sat with it, you've planned for that part of the show where there's a life cycle beyond releasing the show as well. So for me, that's the biggest one.
So I think then, you kind of answered the other question I was going to have is what should we do? And you're saying that you've got a plan for this thing early enough.
Yes.
It's not a must-have. It's just a nice add-on to have. At the end of the day, it extends your audience reach, which then feeds into revenues and also people engaging with your characters and engaging with your product, I know there's also sometimes, do you guys also do dialect dubbing? And what I mean by a beautiful case is in point, right? So you have different dialects of the English language just in the UK alone.
Yeah.
Okay, you go from Manchester to Liverpool to Leeds to Bristol to London, and then you go back up again to the United Kingdom, which is Scotland and Wales, and they kind of have their own little accents going on, right? And then you go to further west, you go to the United States, and then you go, oh my word, they're all speaking exactly the same language. You come back here, you bring it back to home, you got 220 million people speaking Swahili. But I can imagine a different dialect, different accents for each. The same thing with Yoruba, same thing with, come on, even Afrikaans has different, and so do you also explore that side of thing, the dialect of a particular language, and dub into those dialects? Is that something that could make sense? Because I kid you not, I grew up in the UK, yes, but sometimes it's like, okay, you're from Merseyside, guy, like Yeah. Scousers. I'm struggling here.
Like
I'm struggling here. But there's a whole different dialect. So do you guys go into that as well?
There's two answers. The first one is yes. The second one is, for me, it goes back to the storytelling, right?
Okay.
So I think for me, similar to watching a film like that's shot in Liverpool, set in Liverpool, there is an element of trying to create a world of that particular dialect, so to speak. So I think with dubbing, there is an element of, if a show that we dub is based in, let me say Manchester as an example, right? Based around Manchester. Localizing it we try to steer away from saying Manchester. Maybe we may say Johannesburg, but in a storytelling element, if we then start and say every time we say we refer to Manchester in the original show, we then localize it to Johannesburg. Then we try and build the world around that. So the story then stays around that part. And if, as an example, there's a character from a rural area that's coming into Joburg, then his lines can be dubbed or translated in a way that communicates that. So the biggest thing, or my answer to that, is it depends on the story. So the story that we try and I guess it also depends on the client. If they say this is what they're looking for, then we go ahead and do it. But if it's left down to us, we usually build the story around the original story. So we can only work with what we have. And if it's set around a specific place, we then just localize the place and we try and tell the story from that perspective. But if client says, give us, a different dialect for this and that, then that's, I think, the next step to that.
So when you say localize the space, right? So you can't really, if the backdrop is the Karoo, right? The backdrop is the Karoo. I can't localize that to anywhere else. I can't physically in my mind do that.
Yeah.
When you say localize it into then taking, we're dealing with a Clerkstop, for instance, right? We're in Clerkstop and we've got a production in Clerkstop, but now I want to take that predominantly Sotho production and I want to Sotho Setswana production and I want to now localize it into KZN, right? Or I want to localize to any other language. Are you saying that I change in the language, I'm changing the name of the city into the what?
Not always. So if we're dubbing South African content to different South African languages, I think it would easier because it's kind of local already. Yeah. It would be easier to keep the places the same. I was speaking generally from a perspective of working with international places. Sometimes you don't even need to change it. If it's Istanbul, it's Istanbul, but you may say the city. So if someone says, hey, I'm going to Istanbul to go watch something you do in Istanbul.
Yeah.
In the localization of it, we may not refer to it as Istanbul. We may say, hey, I'm going to the city to watch whatever. So there's an element of trying to keep it as local as possible, especially when the problem that would come up is if it's clearly set in that place, I can't change the name just to localize it. So sometimes we stay away from specifically referring to specific cities. So the localization of it is keeping, I guess, vague. But if you're localizing it from a South African production to different South African languages, I think it would be easier to keep the places the same because we should know some of those places. Yeah.
Oh, because literally, I'm sure that the vast majority of people who don't fully understand the technicalities of dubbing will probably just assume that no, you're just taking the story as is, regardless of where it is, and you're taking the story as is, and you're just translating it for me. You're localizing it for me. But you're actually saying to me that the process of dubbing is not to translate the story.
Yeah.
It is to localize it for me. So I find affinity with a character and that storyline.
100%.
Wow. Okay. So it doesn't matter where it's set in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, if I have a production out of Mumbai, they are blatantly Indian,
Yes.
right? It's people of Mumbai.
Yeah.
They are. It's clear, right? But you're finding a way for me to connect with the story.
100%.
And you're saying to me that yes, we can see it's Mumbai, guys.
Yeah.
But you're not saying to me. But I then are being accepted into that world, or I'm accepting the world by not saying it's Mumbai.
Yes. Yes. There's a very cool phrase, which is suspending reality. That's what we do with dubbing. It's like you have to just forget that it's Mumbai. The story has to take you there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it just sort of happens. Oh, I love that, because I think this is the thing for me when it comes to locations and the work that we do is like, guys, it just so happens to be shot here.
Yes.
Like and keep the storyline pure and clean and you know, try not to do too much cheating, but just keep the storyline clean.
Yeah.
All right. There's a situation where you have to come halfway across the world because you're coming to find, I don't know, business here or something. There's a business opportunity, and you have to get on a plane. You have to come to Johannesburg, and and the storyline just goes right. Not that you, and I keep saying, guys, can you just make the storyline just go through a city, right? Let it breathe through a city. You don't have to say too much. Just now and then, just say, "Oh, Tambo."
Yes.
Guys, I'm at OR, you know, as a thing, not as I am now going to the airport to whatever. So in that instance, you would just say, "No, I'm at the airport, guys. I'm at the airport."
Yeah, 100%.
And the backdrop just happens to be that.
Yes. So and then it's easier to believe and buy into the story if you're watching a dub version of a show.
Jeez. Oh God, this is a lot. I'm going to be watching a lot of dub. Like, I am seriously going to invest myself now in watching a lot more dub work.
Yeah. Just to not to cut you, but there's also another point I wanted to make about localizing it.
Yeah.
Idioms are also a big factor. In, you know, for instance, in Korean, there's certain things I will use a Korean idiom to express a certain thing.
Okay.
So if I then just translate it to Zulu, it's not going to make sense. And that's where the localization comes in, where you actually take that idiom and you kind of get a Zulu equivalent, which then just shows you how far off we're not from each other as far as like having these sayings in our own languages. But idioms are also part of the reason why you can't just translate and record that and then that's dubbed. You actually have to localize it so that, you know, in a Shaga Ilembe, like most of it is kind of based around tradition and, you know, those idioms that everyone's going to talk about. You then do it onto, okay, my eyes are not helping me. Sorry about that. But my
don't worry, guys. We do have a team behind the cameras.
Yeah, it's a team. I'm not just looking. Idioms are very important in localizing. So if you're watching that show from Mumbai and they're speaking Zulu, they're gonna have Zulu idioms, and it's easier to buy into that because those are very familiar.
No, I get it. So it's even with simple language as well. I mean, for us, our greeting is Sawo, and in English, is I see you. Yes. How is that a greeting? Like, you see me? What do you mean you see me?
Yeah.
Like, oh, hello. Yes. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Hi.
I see.
And you know, and do you know? And but for us, it's more than it's just the way we talk. It's just the way that we relate with each other. And so you're trying to find that relatability within what you're doing. Gosh, it's a bit in education. Jeez. So I think for me, the success factors really are starting much sooner, right? And the success factor for your growth is do you feel as if you have to learn more languages? Do you feel that pressure that the team have to learn more languages? Is a success factor a bank of voiceovers? Or is your success factor not just limiting yourself to this particular continent? You know, are those success factors for you guys? What's a limiting factor and what's a non-negotiable? Like, I'm not going to do that.
Non-negotiable as far as not doing, we usually just say yes to work and then we make it work after. Okay. One of my colleagues likes saying, we like problems. And so we kind of adopt those problems. And I think there's a learning element into that. So our success is based around learning a market, learning a language, learning how to problem solve a certain thing. Because I think a lot of, because dubbing, especially in South Africa, it's not like an age-old industry. So there's a lot of learning to be done, and we want to be the company that's there to provide solutions at an early point. And in order to provide solutions, you need to learn as far as like getting problems on and then figuring out how those things work.
So you guys are open for business?
Open for business, ready to work.
Wow. Yeah. I'm really eternally proud of you guys. It's what you guys have been able to achieve is just amazing. The amount of technology you guys have. I mean, you guys also do streaming and stuff like that. So it's not just in the studio, you do studio work, you do post-production work, but your specialization is dubbing. Yeah. Though I know you in the past you've done a lot of streaming work, and you know you get involved in that side of the world, and you're stuck in edit suites and sound booths and stuff like that. But I am eternally grateful to your sponsorship, and I've always said to people, and I think I learned this from a very good friend of mine, one of the chief strategists of Locations Africa, and we were always speaking about how do we help businesses expand their business, and it always came down to the language thing. That if you want to be able to attract or to touch audiences, you've got to do stuff that's culturally relevant. You've got to have stories that are culturally relevant that can travel across seas, across lands, and what you're helping producers to remain culturally relevant, of being very pedantic and very specialized in what you're trying to do, in telling them. And sometimes they don't. I'm assuming they don't always know that you've got to localize. You've got to make it. You got to have a whole discussion about the script, how to contextualize it, so then it makes sense for that audience when it wants to set on. I'm assuming that you guys are working with a lot of distributors because they, at least then, if they have you guys in their back pocket, they can then say, okay, fine, guys, I don't know extra how much it costs, so we can move this thing through the marketplace. And so that's another thing for you guys to do. But I think you definitely are bridging that language gap. It separates us as African people, but it also pulls us together in some way. So I'm blown away. I could talk about this dubbing forever because it's something that was so important to me. And I'm like, guys, but why don't you just like dub this thing to a different language? Like, guys, but not knowing where the dubbing agencies are. Okay, this is before I met you guys. I'm just like out here saying, no, I'm sure you'll find it. I'm sure you guys know them. In my bold assumption, I was just making these calls out, but I didn't realize I'm making a call out to the universe to have you guys as my partners in this process. That's what was happening. I was calling you guys into my reality to partner with us on these few parts of this series that is going to go on forever and ever. And if any way we can help you, I have got you guys in my back pocket. I take you guys wherever I go, and this is the family that I have. My family is inclusive of AMAFU, and I thank you so much.
Thank you
for this. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's been fun.
Yeah. It's about my job. I enjoy it.
Yeah. I really do. So it's fine. You give him a raise, guys. It's fine. You give him a raise.
You guys heard that, no? Negotiations are starting right after.
Give him a raise, guys. Give it to him. But thanks so much for the conversation. I really appreciate it.
It's been beautiful. Thank you for having me. And thanks to the team for nominating me to be here. I'm really grateful.